Hello, and welcome to the I'm Done Dieting Now What podcast, where we talk about how to go from binging, obsessed, and feeling out of control with food to intuitive, joyful, and spontaneous, where it no longer takes up so much energy and brain space. I am your host, Michaela. I'm a registered dietitian and body image coach. And in this episode, we're diving into food and body image fears while traveling. Traveling is meant to be a joyful experience where you're relaxing, creating memories, but for many of you who struggle with food and body image, it can be such a miserable and stressful time. So, today I want to discuss three of the most common fears I see pop up with my clients and with all of you, and dig into them and talk about how to navigate them. So, those three fears we're going to talk about are one, losing control and gaining weight while traveling. Two, binging due to travel fatigue and stress. And then three, seeing people you haven't seen since gaining weight. So, those are the three fears we're going to unpack today. And so, I just want to get right on into it and start off with number one, the fear of losing control and gaining weight while you're on vacation. And I just want to reiterate how much of a common fear this is, especially if you are currently struggling with restriction or you have in the past, right? Whenever you're coming from a diet mindset, you automatically view food as the enemy and then weight gain as a failure. So the combo of those two things make food feel very stressful. Also, along with that is that all or nothing mindset of when you're good, when you're bad, you're bad. So, add traveling into the mix, you're either used to being all or nothing. So it's hard to navigate that gray space as you are traveling and trying to heal your relationship with food and your body. So let's start with addressing the fear. So, first and foremost, if this fear is very strong for you, if you are currently in a restrict binge cycle or currently still restricting, um, then I want you to know that there are deeper things that need to be addressed than what I'm going to say here. Healing your relationship with food and your body and really changing the way that your brain thinks and changing that all or nothing mindset takes time and it takes support. So I want you to know um, there's no quick fix. There are no three tips that I can give you to heal this piece of you, and that it's going to take time. It's going to take practice, but the result is going to be you being able to trust yourself with food and feel ease no matter where you are in the world. So just know, again, there are no quick fixes here because one, nothing good happens fast. And so I want to create that expectation and let you have that expectation as you continue healing and as you continue to listen to this episode and just continue to give yourself grace because this can be a pretty tough journey and it takes time. So I just wanted to say that first and foremost. Now, the ultimate key to, I don't want to say solving or fixing, but the ultimate key to addressing this fear is going to be letting go of control, but while you're not on vacation. Because the reason why you lose control on vacation in the first place or have that temptation or that fear is due to restriction in your day to day life or evidence of in the past. So ultimately it's going to be addressing those restrictions because there is no way for you to continue restricting or having hidden mental physical restrictions in your day-to-day life and then go on vacation and feel completely okay and fine. It's ultimately addressing those restrictions. So for example, if you are not keeping certain foods in the house, right? And you typically, when you do go out, you feel out of control around them, or you inevitably get them and put them back in the house, and then you eat so many of them that it makes you feel out of control. So then you push them back out of your house. So that's the exact cycle that we want to break here of taking these foods and putting them back in the house, or just starting with one. Let's say you love cake. And when you travel, you love to enjoy cake. And so that would be before you go on vacation, giving yourself that permission to have cake, to enjoy it every day, create that abundance around it and that permission. That is the only way that cake will lose its power. And so you do not feel out of control whenever you are around it on vacation. So that is the ultimate key to not feeling like you are losing control on vacation because we have to normalize food in the first place, and that starts at home. And something to think about here is it's kind of like being underwater. So, restriction, right? Not giving yourself permission to have the foods that you want. That's like you swimming underwater and holding your breath. And so, when you finally, let's say, give in to temptation or give yourself permission to have that food, you eat a lot of it. And that's kind of like when you come up for air, that first big breath of air is huge and it can be scary. So then you go back down underwater because you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a big breath. That's scary. It's always going to be like that. But that's not true because whenever you come up for that big breath of air and you stay above water, your breath will normalize. And the same thing will happen with the foods that you restrict is yes, when you come up for air, that first big breath is huge. But as you continue to give yourself permission to have the cake, it will normalize. That food loses its power. You start not wanting so much of it. And it becomes like any other food. And again, I know that's scary, easier said than done. But with permission, it will happen. You just have to give yourself the chance. Um, so that is ultimately the key there. Now, some practical tips for while you're traveling, and if you feel like you're losing control a lot, first and foremost, like prepare your mindset ahead of time. Traveling is not it's not forever. Typically, you go to town for a week or two, right? And so telling yourself, like, it's okay and it's normal to eat more when you're on vacation and it won't last forever. Like this week, this 2 weeks is just 2 weeks. It's just 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, you'll be back at home into your routine and that will be that. So enjoy yourself. So that's one reframe that really helps. And then number two will be pack snacks to avoid getting too hungry and then feeling even more out of control. So while you're traveling, try to pack snacks that you know you enjoy, you love. That will help you tremendously not get too hungry. So those are my two tips there. And another thing to remember is practice some self compassion. If you are fearing gaining the weight back, then that stems from a bigger fear of weight gain in general. So that's something deeper that needs to be addressed. But remember your why of why you're going on vacation, how you want to spend your vacation. Really anchor yourself in that because it is a time for you to make memories, to be present, to relax, to enjoy yourself. So, giving yourself some compassion, especially if you eat too much or you eat a lot of foods that you don't normally eat, it's okay. It won't last forever. And so, next, let's talk about fear number two, the fear of binging due to fatigue and stress. And so, first and foremost, we want to understand the fear. And you know what? Traveling can be exhausting and it can be stressful, and that can lead to emotional eating or binging. Different schedules, time zones, lack of sleep, they all contribute to increased stress and fatigue, and you're tired and you need more energy. So you naturally gravitate towards food. But the one thing I want to mention here is if you do have a history of dieting, restricting, this can make the pull to food feel a little bit stronger. But it's typically not due to the fatigue and stress, but because of the underlying restriction or the all or nothing mindset happening. And I know that may be confusing right now. So, if you struggle with emotional eating, one thing that I recommend doing is checking out my emotional eating podcast episode. If you listen to that, it will make a ton of more sense. So, if that's you, go listen to that, then come back listen to this. So, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward of saying that emotional eating or binge eating is not the problem if you have healed your relationship with food and have no more restrictions. So, if you find yourself binging due to stress and fatigue when traveling, it's more so because of the restriction. And here's an example. So, I had a client travel for the holidays last year, and her flight was delayed so many times to the point where she had to get a hotel room and stay there for the night. And so, when she did end up getting her to her hotel room, she was so frustrated. So, on her way up, she bought tons of snacks and got to her room and went to town. And by the end of it, she felt even more frustrated, guilty, and uncomfortable. And so, what we found was that she looked at emotional eating as this big bad thing she shouldn't do, as well as she had underlying restrictions in there. She thought she shouldn't have these snacks, right? She was avoiding eating at the airport because of the food that was there, and she didn't want to tempt herself with a burger and fries. There are so many things happening that the lid popped, right? So she got her snacks and she was like, whatever, I may as well just eat all this stuff. And so for so long, she thought she had an emotional eating problem, when at the end of the day, it was just restriction and her all or nothing mindset. And so we had to shift her mindset when it came to emotional eating. So she stopped looking at it as this big bad thing she shouldn't do and started normalizing it of like, it's okay to eat emotionally. I'm a human being. It's normal. Everyone does it. And it's just the restriction behind it and also me trying not to do it that makes it even worse and makes this all or nothing thing start to happen. So she gave herself permission to do it, as well as there was permission to pack travel snacks, be prepared, as well as have a meal at the airport that she actually wanted. She had the burger and fries, or she started giving herself permission to do that. And so recently, she actually was traveling for work, and this exact same thing happened again. She was stuck in the airport. Her flight was delayed, and this time it was a completely different story. There was permission to eat emotionally. She knew it. But also, her mindset was different. She was able to stay in the airport. She was able to grab a burger and fries. She had her travel snacks. There was no getting too hungry. And then when she got to her room, she was able to go up and just take a shower and go to sleep. And so that's the key whenever it comes to, binge eating or that fear of binge eating or emotional eating in regards to travel stress. Whenever you are not restricting anymore, and have permission to eat emotionally, it makes it so much easier because then you're not, again, that deprivation's not there. Food's lost its power. And so you're able to cope in ways that actually make you feel good. And so the takeaway here is, one, address your underlying restriction that may be happening. If you're not giving yourself permission to have food, certain foods, if you're not eating consistently throughout the day, those are reasons why this is happening. And then number two, pack travel snacks and know that emotional eating is normal and it will happen and it's okay. Just that permission alone kind of releases the pressure of don't emotionally eat, and think of it as this big bad thing that you shouldn't do. And again, listen to the emotional eating podcast episode. That will definitely help. And last but not least, let's address fear number three, the fear of seeing people you haven't seen since gaining weight. And this fear comes up for so many of my clients. But first, I want to acknowledge the privilege that I hold here. I cannot pretend to understand your exact experience. And even with my privilege, I've helped so many of my clients through this hurdle. And here's how. And first, it's going to depend on many different factors. It's where you're at in your food and body peace journey, your support system, life experiences, personality, all of that is going to play a role. But ultimately, it will be these three steps. And that's number one, opening it up. We got to look at it. You can't hide it. You can't try to push it down or avoid it and just get to the destination and hope for the best. We have to open it up before. Number two is explore why it's so hard. What are you so scared about when it comes to traveling and other people judging you? And then number three, what are we going to do about it? So, what game plan are we going to put in place to help you make a very uncomfortable situation comfortable? How are you going to handle it without going back to restriction or trying to lose weight before? And so here's an example. One of my clients used to try to restrict and lose weight leading up to a vacation. While she was on vacation, she would continue restricting, not eat a lot because she didn't want her family to judge her. And then she would go home, eat everything, lose control, and then the cycle would repeat. So that is where she was at before we started working together. Now, when we started working together, she had a family reunion coming up, and she was at a place where she was no longer restricting. She had broken the binge cycle. So we had to figure out, okay, well, what are we going to do here? How are we going to make her as comfortable as possible going into a very uncomfortable situation? Because she was not running back to restriction. She was at a place where she knew it doesn't work and it always makes everything worse. She always ends up right back here. And so we did three things. One is comfortable clothes. She went out and got comfortable clothes that made her feel comfortable and possible. Again, we made her physically as comfortable as possible in an uncomfortable environment. Number two is we created a game plan for when or if people commented on her body or started talking about dieting, restricting, all the things. So, a few things we did was we prepared and practiced some responses that she could use. Also, a game plan of leaving the room, changing the subject, little things that she could go to make her feel more comfortable in that situation. And then number three is creating a support system. And this was very important because nothing is worse whenever you feel alone in the struggle. And so she was able to contact me during moments that were distressing or, whenever she was starting to get too much in her head, as well as we built a support system within her environment, which was her husband and her daughter. So she talked to them beforehand. They knew what was going on, so they were there for her to help her if she got too distressed. And so that together helped her have a great vacation. At the end of it, no one ended up commenting on her body, but she was able to have a game plan. She was able to understand why that fear was there and how to find comfort in a very uncomfortable situation. And it's interesting how now we're at a few trips since then. So she had that family reunion, but also she's been on a few trips, and each time it has gotten easier for her because every time it was like kind of like ripping off a band-aid. That first one was always the worst, but now she has the tools and she knows what to do, and it really doesn't phase her anymore. So it is possible to get to that place. It is just about letting yourself do the mindset work to sit in the suck of, understanding your body image, your fears, and letting yourself move through it. So if you have a trip or event coming up that in the past you used to avoid, so you'd cancel or not go or restrict to prepare for, and you don't want to do that anymore, I have three questions for you that I want you to think to yourself about. One, what is the worst part? What's the worst part about going to this event, this vacation? What are you scared of? Two, how are you going to travel without relying on restriction? So, how are you going to go on the vacation without trying to lose weight prior or restrict your way there? What are you gonna, how are you gonna do that? Number three is who is your support system for when or if someone comments on your body? And so, to wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember that summer and traveling is an opportunity to explore, to relax, and enjoy new experiences. And you deserve to be able to experience those things without constantly stressing and obsessing over the food you're eating or what your body looks like. And it is possible to do that. Peace is possible for you. You can pursue health without weight loss. You can enjoy a vacation without restricting or losing weight prior. You can eat in a way that's both energizing and satisfying. You can feel confident and comfortable in your body without weight loss. You can live your life without a constant obsession and stressing over food in your body. And if you do not have a support system and you want to be able to travel and not stress about losing control, binging, or showing up in a body that is different than what it was before, and you want to be able to be present and not let other people's judgments or opinions affect you, this is exactly why I created my Food and Body Peace program. It's a 12-week program where I walk you step by step through intuitive eating, through your body image hurdles, to a joyful and peaceful relationship with food in your body. Because a lot of times, if you feel stuck, chances are there's something missing in your toolbox. And with support, with tools, you can find what it is and move through it. So right now, I have 2 one-on-one spots left for June, and I am now opening up pre-enrollment for my September group cohort. So, super excited about the next group. It's my last group of the year, so I am offering a free 30-minute intensive for those who sign up before June 30th. So if you're interested, if you have questions, feel free to email me, DM me on Instagram. I would love to answer those for you. But until then, you can find the application, you can find the program information in the show notes. So make sure to check that out. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with friends who may benefit. Anyway, thank you all, and I will talk to you next time.